Stomach Cancer webinar on the role of nutrition for cancer patients. When diagnosed with cancer, nutrition becomes even more important. Good nutrition can help you feel better, reduce the risk of infection, keep your strength up, and help you heal faster. During this informational webinar, you will learn the building blocks of a healthy diet, as well as the nutritional needs throughout treatment. I am Mary Margaret Kilmeyer, and I will be moderating today's webinar. I'm the Patient Resource Manager for Debbie's Dream Foundation Curing Stomach Cancer. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and recently completed my doctorate. My clinical and research background is focused on working collaboratively with doctors, patients, their families, and members of a healthcare team. We would like to thank Genentech for providing funding to make this webinar possible. We would also like to thank our promotional partners, the American Association for Cancer Research, the Anti-Cancer Club, Cure Magazine, the Esophageal Cancer Action Network, Meals to Heal, and Patient Resource. You will be able to ask questions during this presentation. You can type your questions into the white text box that appears on your screen. At the conclusion of the presentation, we will address questions as time allows. If we don't have time to address your question today, we will try to address it during our next webinar, taking place on October 7th at 12 noon Eastern Time. In addition, the recording of this webinar will be accessible on our website. Shawanda Manuel-Graham recently joined the DDF team as our program director. She will be co-moderating today's webinar. First, I will introduce Debbie Zellman, who will share with you her journey and information about Debbie's Dream Foundation. Then Tasha Feilke will present the role of nutrition for cancer patients. And then there will be time for a question and answer session at the end. I would now like to introduce the president and founder of Debbie's Dream Foundation, Debbie Zellman.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. So first, I just want to tell you a little bit about me and my story. I was diagnosed with stage 4 stomach cancer in April of 2008. At that time, I was only 40 years old, the mother of 3 young children, married to a physician, and I was a practicing attorney with my own firm. I had no risk factors for stomach cancer, and my symptoms were very vague. At the time of my diagnosis, I was told that my chance of being alive in 5 years was only 4%. However, I'm happy to tell you it has been 7 years since my diagnosis, but I have had 5 recurrences during that 7 years, and I am still a patient, and I do receive chemotherapy every 3 weeks, as well as take oral chemo every night. Next slide. I started Debbie's Dream Foundation Curing Stomach Cancer in April of 2009, which was a year after I was diagnosed. I'm happy to tell you that we are definitely making a big difference in stomach cancer. We, on the advocacy level, are members of the Deadliest Cancers Coalition, the Patient Equal Access Coalition, and the State Patient Equal Access Coalition, as well as One Voice Against Cancer. I personally serve as a patient advocate on the National Cancer Institute Esophagogastric Task Force, on the NCI Patient Advocacy Steering Committee, on the NCCN Gastric and Esophageal Guidelines Committee, on the CDMRP Department of Defense Peer Review Cancer Research Program Integration Panel, on the American Society of Clinical Oncology HER2 Testing in Gastric Cancer Project, as well as the American Cancer Society Research Program Stakeholder. But people tell me that even though I've done all that, my most notable appearance has been on Dr. Oz in a program about stomach cancer. Next slide. So here are some facts about stomach cancer. It's one of the leading causes of cancer death worldwide, second in men and fourth in women. Each year, nearly 1 million people are diagnosed with stomach cancer, and approximately 700,000 of those people will die. In America, more than 24,000 people will be diagnosed with stomach cancer each year, this year, and more than 11,000 will die. Stomach cancer in the U.S. is on the rise in young people ages 25 to 39. However, per cancer death, stomach cancer receives the least amount of federal research funds of any cancer. Until Debbie's Dream, there were a few resources and support services for stomach cancer patients, and most people knew very little about this deadly disease. Next slide. In order to address these problems, we started Debbie's Dream Foundation as a 501c3 nonprofit to raise awareness about stomach cancer, advance funding for research, and provide education and support internationally to patients, families, and caregivers. And Debbie's Dream Foundation seeks, as our ultimate goal, to make the cure for stomach cancer a reality. Our website is www.debbiesdream.org. Next slide. So in 6 years, we have reached many milestones, including an amazing patient resource education program, which we abbreviate PrEP, because it prepares hundreds of patients, families, and caregivers throughout the world by matching them with other survivors and caregivers. And it uses very specific disease criteria, including stage, biomarkers, age, gender, role, or region. It's all free, as well as our symposia and our webinars like this one. We have 27 chapters in the United States and Canada and Germany. We hold events across the U.S. and Canada, and we have funded $350,000 in research grant funding. We have also held an annual Stomach Cancer Advocacy Day on Capitol Hill in the United States, as well as a Capitol Hill briefing. I'm happy to tell you that we have changed the landscape of federal research funding. We were able, as a direct result of our advocacy, to get stomach cancer added to the Department of Defense peer-reviewed cancer research program, which is a $50 million pot of money. So we will be, hopefully, getting millions of dollars for stomach cancer research this year. In addition, our last milestone on this slide is our website. Our website is amazing. Again, www.debbiesdream.org. If you could open the website in another tab, that's great, or on your other screen if you have a second screen, please do, and you will see that there are in-depth stomach cancer information, lecture library, clinical trial information, a clinical trial matching service, a stomach cancer support community, blog topics, and resources, which are completely translatable into more than 60 languages. And now you're seeing on your screen a screenshot of the homepage of our website. That's just the top of it. You can scroll down if you have the website open, but you can see it's a very user-friendly website. Next slide. So at this time, I'm going to hand the presentation back to our very capable moderator, Mary Margaret Kilmeyer, to explain these events to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Debbie. As you can see on your screen, there are many events taking place across the country for you to get involved in over the next several months, and many more coming up in 2016. So please check out our events page on our website to learn more about these and other events. Our Dream Big Luncheon will be taking place here in Fort Lauderdale on September 21st. Also in September in Chicago, we will have a team participating in the half marathon and 5K on September 27th. Also in Chicago on November 7th will be our Chicago Stomach Cancer Education Symposium. This is a completely free event for patients, caregivers, and family members to attend to hear from leading experts in the field of stomach cancer on various topics that are important to patients and their families. If you're not in the Chicago area or not able to attend the event in person, this will also be live webcast internationally, and again, completely free of charge. Please check out our events page on our website for more information, as well as registration information for this great event. In New York on November 8th will be a night of laughter taking place, as well as the International Stomach Cancer Genes Day on November 13th. And then early in 2016, in January, we will have a team participating in the Miami Marathon and Half Marathon. Debbie's Dream Foundation is headquartered in Davie, Florida. Our office is open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. On this slide, you will also see important phone numbers and email addresses to contact our office. We will start the presentation on the role of nutrition for the cancer patient. Our presenter is Tasha Feilke of Meals to Heal. Ms. Feilke is a registered dietitian as well as a Massachusetts licensed dietitian. She obtained her Master's of Science in Nutrition at Bastyr University in Washington State and completed her dietetic internship at San Francisco State University. She has worked in various inpatient, outpatient, and community settings. Tasha is passionate about motivating people to reach their fitness and nutritional goals throughout all stages and conditions of life and believes that food can truly serve as medicine. I would now like to turn the webinar over to Tasha.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today. As more and more scientific studies are showing, it's really important to maintain good nutrition before, during, and after cancer treatment. And one of the biggest challenges is how to eat healthy when eating out. I could say just stay at home and make your own food, but that's not any fun, and it's really not realistic. So therefore, today I was going to give this talk about making healthy choices when you're going out to restaurants, and also some tips on choosing foods that may help with side effects with the particular treatments you may be getting for stomach cancer. Next slide. So one of the first steps that can be really helpful is to plan ahead. This means you can call the restaurant first and see what kind of healthy choices they might offer and make your special request ahead of time. That saves some time when you get to the restaurant and may avoid some confusion. You can also check out their website. Since most restaurants have an online website these days, you can look at the menu options before you go. This can be really helpful to see what kind of healthy choices they offer and to be able to come up with questions to ask your server when you get there. Sometimes it helps to even go at an earlier or later time to the restaurant. And that way you can talk to the server and see if they can make special meals for you, such as if you need to do gluten-free or you're restricting your dairy, or even if you need to reduce the spices, depending on the type of meal. If you're afraid that you're going to eat a lot at dinner, it might be good to have a lighter meal beforehand, to have a lighter lunch that day. And that way you can allow yourself to have a little more than you usually would have at the dinner time. Next slide. So to dine out healthily, and especially if you're worried about your weight or trying to avoid gaining weight, or sometimes with treatments, it's hard to eat a lot of food at one time. You get full quickly. So for either of these conditions, it might be nice to avoid restaurants that offer the all-you-can-eat buffet or specials. Most of the time, people eat more than they usually would when it's a full open bar of food. If you are going out and you know that they serve large portions, you can always eat a light snack or have some kind of beverage before you go. Again, that's only if you're hungry, and that way it might help you eat less at the dinner meal. You can practice portion control by sharing an entree with your friend or family, or just ordering smaller items off the menu, like an appetizer or an appetizer and a soup. You can also eat more slowly and just really enjoy the taste of the food. It takes about 20 minutes for our stomach to even realize when we are full. So eating slowly, chewing every bite carefully, talking to your friends, and taking more time may help you eat less at the dinner meal. Next slide. So in ordering your meal, it's really great to look at the menu and see if they have any items marked healthy. Or some of the times they're even marked vegetarian or without dairy. Usually there's little icons next to them. And it's good to go over that and just check it out, because that may really help steer your choices to more healthy ones. When you're talking to the server, you can ask for the sauces or gravy or even the salad dressing to be given on the side. And that way you can just dip your fork a little bit at a time into the sauce. And that helps you get less fat and less sweet in your meal. You may want to avoid ordering the appetizers beforehand, skipping the bread and butter, skipping the tortilla chips, and that will help you eat less overall and also help you avoid just having filler foods. You would get more nutrition out of eating the regular meal if it has a lot of vegetables and whole grains, and that way you'll get more nutrients rather than filling up with the empty nutrient food. If there's a salad bar, choose fresh greens and raw vegetables, garbanzo beans, and try to avoid the cheesy, mayonnaise-y pasta salads and fruit salads, as these are definitely higher in calories and fat. If your immune system is low, you may want to avoid the salad bar altogether. Sometimes these are a little bit higher in the germs, and sometimes the doctors recommend that you avoid these if your white blood cell count is low. Also, choosing desserts carefully. Fresh fruit is always a better choice than regular ice cream. Or you can look for a fruit ice. Or if you do want to splurge and share a dessert, just try to choose one that you like and share it with a few people. That way you're each getting a little bit. Next slide. So many words to look for that are healthier are baked and boiled, braised. Those are usually for the fish and meat items. Consommé, which is made in a broth, cooked in its own juices. Garden fresh usually means more locally fresh foods that are natural and usually relate to vegetables. Grilled versus fried, marinara sauce versus cream sauces, poached and roasted, steamed and stir-fried. You can always ask about the stir-fries and see if they can use less oil. These are just healthy choices to look for when you're choosing menu items. Next slide. So when you're sitting down at the table, don't be scared to talk to your server about how the foods are prepared. These days, people are really used to this, and they are getting much better about adding substitutions and changing foods to how people need them. If you're especially sensitive to dairy or spices, you can always ask for them to hold the cheese or the cream, or to do a low spice or avoid the spices altogether. You can ask what kind of oil the food is prepared with. The best oils are the monounsaturated oils, which are olive oil, canola oil, and peanut oil. So these are better ones, especially compared to tropical oils or lard, which can be much higher in saturated fat. You can also ask if smaller portions are available or whether you can share an entree. Sometimes I even ask if the server can prepare the entree and box half of it in the beginning and just bring half of it to the table. And that way you are likely to eat less. Always ask whether healthy substitutions are possible. So if your sandwich is coming with French fries, you can ask whether you can get a baked potato or maybe a side of vegetables instead. That is usually really common these days, and people usually can replace them with healthy options. Next slide. So top 10 questions to ask your server or waiter. Ask if the dish is fried. Many times they can grill the chicken or fish, especially if it's a fish taco. You can ask if you can have the grilled fish versus the fried fish. Ask if you can have a substitution for the side order, such as the baked potato versus the French fries. Ask if they can steam the vegetables, chicken or fish. And you can always ask if they can steam the vegetables without butter. That's a much healthier option. And then you can get the sauce on the side. You can ask what the sauce is made with and also ask for it on the side so that you eat less of it. Also ask if there's healthier options highlighted on the menu. Sometimes there is low sodium options, a low sodium soup versus a high sodium, and it may not be mentioned on the menu. So it's always good to ask. If you're avoiding dairy, you can ask, can you prepare this without the cheese or the cheese sauce? And you can even ask how large is the serving? How many ounces is the beef, chicken, or fish? Some restaurants give huge servings, 16 ounces of beef sometimes, which is 4 times the amount that you would need. So that way you would know if you can share this entree with a friend or package half of it to go. You can even ask for the children's or appetizer size portion if that's available. Next slide. So it's good to avoid fast food restaurants most of the time, as these usually don't have very healthy choices. This would be McDonald's or Taco Bell, any of the places that are on the way to on a road trip or even around town. But sometimes it's hard to avoid going there. And so these are some tips for when you do go to these fast food places. It's always good to pass on the super-sized serving, because this offers you a greater size of food at just a little bit higher price, but usually you're getting almost double the calories you would normally need. So just get the normal size servings if you can. It's good to skip the sides, which are usually French fries, tater tots, and ask for a healthier side dish if it's offered, such as a side salad or a fruit cup. You can avoid ordering sandwiches with the double meat. I think Arby's is one of the places they like to pile on the meat, so you can just ask for half the meat if that's doable. Try to steer clear again of the fried foods, especially with a lot of gastric cancer treatments targeting the stomach. Greasy foods can really irritate the stomach. So again, doing more of the fruit cups, the steamed grilled sandwich versus the fried sandwiches. You can also get them to hold the mayonnaise and other special sauces that are high in calories and fat. And also watch what you're drinking. Water is always the best as it's low calorie and very hydrating. But milk can also be good if you're not sensitive to dairy. You can get the skim milk or low-fat milk. And if you enjoy soda, diet soda can be a little bit better than the regular soda. Since regular soda, as we know, is full of calories and sugar. Next slide. So now I'm going to go through some cuisines, the ethnic cuisines that are very popular, and go through some of the terms that are healthier for choosing on the menu. So the first one is Italian cuisine. And some better choices to choose for going to an Italian restaurant. For an appetizer, you can try one of the soups, commonly the roasted pepper soup or minestrone soup, and that would be a better choice than the fried calamari. For pastas, which of course are common at Italian restaurants, it's much better to choose the pastas with the marinara sauces, and it's even nice to add extra vegetables on top. A lot of these restaurants don't add very many vegetables, so you can ask for the extra vegetables and try to avoid the pastas with the butter or the cream sauces, as these can be irritating and, of course, high calorie and with a lot of fat. For the chicken dishes, you can try a masala, which is simmered in a wine broth instead of a cream broth, or there's the chicken piccata, which is lightly breaded and sautéed. And these can be better choices than, say, a fettuccine alfredo, which is very buttery and creamy and heavy, and the Parmesan dishes, which have chicken with layers of cheese. And of course, you can always order the salads, which is always nice to have on the side. Next slide. For Chinese cuisine, there's lots of fried foods that are offered, and so you can always ask if things can be steamed or boiled or broiled instead of having the fried meat. Lately, they've been increasing the servings and the choices for the rice, so it's common now to ask for brown rice instead of fried rice, and this is a much better choice for higher fiber and more nutrients. Again, you can ask for the sauces on the side, and you can also ask them to even be prepared without the soy sauce and the MSG, which some people are highly sensitive to, and the salt. And then you can just add it to your own dish at the table, which is very helpful to avoid the high sodium that is so common in the Chinese foods. Next slide. Japanese restaurants have various options, and some of them are also the fried. So if you see the word tempura, that is equal to fried. And you might want to avoid that and try the steamed vegetables instead. You can get the steamed vegetable dumplings versus the egg rolls or the fried egg rolls. You can try the chicken teriyaki instead of the chicken and shrimp with an egg custard if you want to avoid some of the cream and fat. Again, you can ask for soy sauce on the side and just sparingly add it yourself to avoid the high sodium. If your immune system is low and your doctor has said to avoid raw foods such as salads, you definitely want to avoid the raw sushi. And you can ask for the cooked fish. Most Japanese restaurants well cook the fish and can make a sushi out of it as well. Next slide. At Mexican restaurants, it's common to have a bowl of tortilla chips on your table when you sit down. And if you're watching your fat intake, or if fatty foods are irritating your stomach, you definitely would want to skip the fried tortilla chips. For healthier food options, you can try grilled fish or the grilled chicken instead of the fried beef or pork. You can always avoid the full-fat sour cream and use lower-fat healthy options of salsa, pico de gallo, and the spices such as cilantro and jalapenos. Again, if spices are irritating your stomach, you can ask for the mild salsa or ask for your food to be prepared without the peppers. Chicken enchiladas may be a better choice than the flautas or chimichangas, simply because flautas and chimichangas are fried. And you can also ask them to hold the cheese. There's a lot of cheese on Mexican food, and if you're sensitive to it, you can ask them to take it off. Next slide. For Greek restaurants, a common appetizer is meat stuffed appetizers, usually lamb. And for a healthier choice, you can try rice appetizers. There's the dolmas, which are the grape leaves stuffed with rice, or eggplant. Sometimes they have a steamed eggplant. Again, you might want to avoid the fried calamari, which is common, as it's fried and greasy. A healthy choice would be to order a couscous dish with the bulgur wheat, and you can ask for extra vegetables. And again, choosing the chicken instead of other risotto or other creamy and cheesy entrees. Maybe just get a grilled chicken with the couscous on the side. They also have pita sandwiches, and a chicken pita sandwich is a little bit healthier than a gyro, which is a lamb. Lamb is pretty similar to red meat in the saturated fat makeup. Next slide. If you're going out to a Thai restaurant, duck is a common meat that's served at Thai places, and you might want to choose the chicken or the fish over the duck to obtain less saturated fat. Again, you can try the fresh spring rolls instead of the fried to cut down on the greasiness of the food. And also, you can ask for stir-fried dishes that are just basically broth dishes or noodle dishes instead of the rich dishes with coconut milk. These can be very heavy. The coconut milk is also a heavy fat, and it can irritate the stomach. You can try the steamed rice also instead of the fried rice, which has less oil. And the broth-based noodle bowls can be really nice choice there. You can ask for extra vegetables, you can add tofu, and make a really healthy choice at a Thai restaurant. Next slide. And the last restaurant cuisine I'm going to talk about is Indian cuisine. And for their appetizers, they offer samosas often, which are a fried pastry with a filling. And you can instead choose the papadum, which is just a crispy thin lentil wafer, which is a healthier choice. You can also try curry dishes that have a vegetable or dal lentil base instead of the coconut creamy type bases. And you might want to do a chicken shabab, again, instead of the curry dish made with coconut milk or cream, as a less fat version, and again, which may help settle your stomach. Also, again, you can ask for extra vegetables. There's lots of spinach stalls and vegetarian dishes at Indian restaurants. Next slide. So I wanted to mention some dietary restrictions that may be occurring during treatment of gastric cancer. One of them is when your white blood cell count is low or expected to lower with treatment, it might be prudent to avoid the salad bars and open buffet, as this is a place where a lot of people congregate and have their hands going back and forth, and it's just more likely to have germs transferred to the food. So you may want to avoid those and just get prepared dishes sent to your table. Again, avoiding the raw fish, such as sushi, and soft cheeses, such as brie and gorgonzola, which can be contaminated a little more commonly than the cooked food. Also, if you're asking for a hamburger, it's good to order it medium or well done. Sometimes during treatment, dairy becomes a problem. Sometimes it's temporary, sometimes it's permanent. But if you're noting indigestion with dairy foods, you can always try dairy substitutes. You can try rice milk or soy milk instead of regular milk. And you can also ask the waiter to hold the cheese and choose non-dairy sauces, such as the tomato sauce base versus the cream bases. Most restaurants are pretty accommodating for dairy at this point. If you're having heartburn, it's good to choose mild spices. A lot of restaurants, especially ethnic cuisines, have very varying degrees of spices available. And so it's good to ask the waiter beforehand to see if they can do very mild or omit most of the spices. You also may want to avoid citrus and tomato sauce, as these can also contribute to heartburn. Another issue is having early fullness with meals. And if this is the case, you may want to choose 6 smaller meals spread throughout your day. This may make eating out more of a challenge, but it's easier to do if you can do a small breakfast, a snack, a small lunch, another snack, and then order an appetizer or a soup and have a sandwich at dinner, and then take some of the food home and maybe have another snack before bed. It's a good schedule to have if you're getting very full with meals, and this can also lead to heartburn and indigestion. And the last condition is something that may happen if you've had gastric surgery. And this is where food goes through the body very quickly, liquids especially. And you may, which can be called dumping syndrome. That would be, again, choosing water to drink versus a lemonade. You may want to drink your liquids before or after meals and not during the meal. And also for the low sugar foods, choosing more whole grains, so would be choosing a brown rice versus a white rice, or a whole grain bread versus a white bread. And of course, using lower portions, maybe 1 cup of rice versus a big bowl to avoid this problem. And that concludes the presentation. If anyone has any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you so much, Tasha. And as we are listening, we really appreciate your presentation going through the different ethnic cuisines and tips for those who are eating out. What we will do now is I will turn the webinar over to Shawanda, who will start to read the questions that we have received during your presentation.
Thank you, Margaret. Also, thank you again, Tasha. One of the questions we have is, what are the best salad bar selections, i.e. the vegetables, if you had to choose, which would be the best ones?
Oh, great. Well, yes, salad bars can vary tremendously in what they offer, but most of the time they offer either the iceberg lettuce or a type of spinach or kale along with it. And I would say definitely try to get more of the kale and the spinach versus the iceberg lettuce, as there's more nutrients in those types, in the darker greens. Also, if there's cabbage, that's a wonderful choice. Some shredded cabbage, any kind of vegetable, raw vegetables such as broccoli. The darker greens tend to have more of the heavy-hitting nutrients and antioxidants in there. So darker green, dark reds, so that would be the red cabbage, the spinach, the kale, and beets. Beets are wonderful. Also red bell peppers, orange bell peppers. Just a mix of colors, a rainbow of colors on your plate would ensure that you're getting a wide range of antioxidants that are very healthy. And the important part would just be making sure they're not laden and cooked with a lot of mayonnaise and butter and oil. So mostly raw, pile them on your plate, and then get a little side of dressing that you can use sparingly on top. And that would be a very healthy choice.
Thank you for that. Also, the next one. You suggested boxing part of your meal to go. What are any food safety precautions that should be taken in doing that?
Well, the restaurant should be taking precautions when they're serving and preparing food. If you're going to a reputable place, sometimes you can check and see what their health listing is, and that may tell you how clean the facility is. If they're rated A, some cities do this. If they're rated A, that means they are adhering to very tight standards of cleanliness and hygiene. But if you're very concerned, I would definitely ask the server if you could just box it yourself. You could have them bring out the entree that has just been cooked and box it up yourself if you want to be doubly sure. That way you know you're washing your hands and you'll put it in there yourself. And I'm sure they could even put it back in the refrigerator for you if you were concerned, if you were going to be sitting out at the restaurant for quite a while.
Thank you.
Sure.
The last question, do you have any tips for reducing sugar intake while eating out to avoid the dumping syndrome?
That's a very good question. And I would say the best thing to do is look at the menu and try to see how many vegetables choices there are. Again, doing the salads and doing a grilled protein, a broiled protein such as a fish with a salad on the side, and just doing a little bit of a grain. And the whole grains are the best because they have more fiber and they go digested more slowly throughout your body. So again, doing the brown rice instead of the white rice. That's the best way to do it, is to choose your protein, your vegetables, and just a little bit of the grain to avoid the sugar. But if you really are wanting a soup or something more of a mixed meal that they're serving, I would ask the server and see if the soup has a lot of sugar in it, or ask what the ingredients are, because sometimes it's really hard to know. To be on the safe side, though, I would just stick with a side of vegetable and again the grilled fish or meat. And if you're getting a dessert, again, just have a few bites and maybe share it with a friend, because really where you see the most sugar is in the beverages and in the desserts. And you can always, do the water for your beverage or the low-fat milk, and then just share a dessert to cut down on the sugar.
Thank you so much, Tasha, for those answers and for a very wonderful presentation today. We appreciate your time.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really glad to be here.
Thank you. As you know, this webinar was brought to you by Debbie's Dream Foundation, Curing Stomach Cancer. Thank you to our speaker, Tasha Feilke of Meals to Heal, and to Genentech for providing funding that helped make this webinar possible. As you see on your screen, we have upcoming events to get involved in and support. Details about these events are available on the Debbie's Dream website, www.debbiesdream.org. Thank you to all of our listeners today. Our next nutrition webinar will be held on October 7th at 12 noon Eastern Time. We would love to hear your feedback, questions, and comments before then. Please send your thoughts to patient.resource@debbiesdream.org. Please stay tuned for our clinical trials webinar, which will be starting momentarily.